What's poppin', Acolytes? It is me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. Acolyte Episode 3 is out, and we've got to talk about it, so heavy spoilers coming your way for this episode. So let's just go ahead and get into this damn thing, my nerd babies. And Episode 3 of The Acolyte takes place entirely on Osha and May's home planet of Brendok, 16 years in the past. When the episode starts with a flyover over the surface of the planet, I couldn't help but notice this ring of standing stones atop one of the planet's many green mountaintops. This formation of standing stones is called a Force Henge, and they appear to be extremely similar to the ones Mando and Grogu found on the planet Tython in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, as well as the Force Henge that Baylan, Shin, and Morgan found on the planet Cetos from the Ahsoka series. Grogu's Force Henge on Tython was a place that was apparently incredibly strong with the Force, and because of that, a tool of incredible power called the Seeing Stone was placed at its center, allowing Force users like Grogu to meditate on it in order to send out a Force beacon into outer space to other Force sensitives throughout the galaxy. Grogu used that very same Seeing Stone to make contact with a young Luke Skywalker before being taken away by Luke to be trained. In the Ahsoka series, that particular Force Henge was referred to as a reflex point, and we would see Morgan Elsbeth use that reflex point on the Arcana star map in order for those standing stones to amplify that map through the Force, basically making the map bigger. It seems that in Star Wars, the appearance of a Force Henge appears to denote a culture marking a particular spot in nature as an area where the Force is strongly concentrated, also known in Star Wars as a vergence in the Force. Famous places in Star Wars history that were vergences in the Force include that darkside cave on Dagobah that Luke ventured into in The Empire Strikes Back, as well as that big-ass hole on the planet H2 that led Rey to that mirror cave. Thanks to those two places being overwhelmingly powerful vergences in the Force, specifically the dark side of the Force in those two examples, both Luke and Rey's inner fears were amplified into interactive visions. So much like those vergences in the Force amplified what was inside Luke and Rey's hearts, it seems like those Force Henge vergences are able to amplify what was inside both Grogu and the Arcana star map. Now, the following here is just a theory that I've been developing over the past few years now, but I've come to realize that vergences in the Force are strongly correlated to how much natural greenery or life is present around a particular area, whether that area be on the surface of the planet or underground, which makes sense considering that the Force itself is strongly associated with life. And trigger warning coming your way because I'm about to say the M word on YouTube.com, but George Lucas has established that midichlorians are attracted to life. And the more microscopic midichlorians a person or a piece of nature has, the stronger in the Force it'll be. Anakin Skywalker had a ton of midichlorians within his bloodstream, which is why he was regarded as a living vergence in the Force by the Jedi Council. And in the same vein, Yoda's foresty swamp planet of Dagobah was rich with life as well, and that's why I believe it's known as one of the more Force-rich planets in the galaxy. However, I've also observed that what makes a vergence in the Force light-sided or dark-sided appears to be correlated with how much light that location is exposed to. If a vergence in the Force is located somewhere physically dark, like a cave, then that vergence will be a dark-sided vergence. But if it's one that is out in the open and surrounded by a bunch of nature and light, like Grogu's Force Henge, that's typically a light-sided vergence. And I've also come to realize that this probably also extends to planets as a whole as well. Because you know how they call some planets light-sided planets and dark-sided planets? Well, I feel like that typically correlates to where the majority of the planet's life energy is at. If that life is populating the surface of the planet and bathing in life-giving starlight or sunlight, then it's usually a light-sided planet. However, if the surface of a planet's life force is hidden from the sunlight in some way, or that surface is just plain lifeless in general, then that planet is typically a dark-sided planet. For example, the planet Coruscant is actually a dark-sided planet in Star Wars, which is kind of weird to think about because that's where the Jedi are stationed, right? So like, why would Coruscant be considered a dark-sided planet? Well, I believe it's because Coruscant is actually an incredibly sad planet, because it's a planet that has had its entire natural landscape covered by layer upon layer of cityscapes, with the only visible part of Coruscant's natural environment being the peak of Mount Umate that we saw highlighted briefly in Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Coruscant is kind of an abomination of a planet that is full of life, but the majority of that life isn't exposed to the light of a star, especially the natural parts of that planet. making Coruscant as a whole a dark-sided planet, in my opinion. Mustafar is another dark-side planet that has its skies covered in volcanic ash, while Palpatine's planet of Exegol was covered in never-ending lightning clouds. Basically, in my opinion, if the majority of life on a planet either lives obscured by light, or is just straight up a dead planet filled with the life forces of dead people buried on that planet, like Dathomir, then it's probably a dark-sided planet. Now, I know some of you guys are wondering why the hell I'm even bringing this up at all in a video about episode 3 of The Acolyte. Well, it's sort of an attempt to try to possibly explain what could be a core aspect of Mother Anastaea's cult, their worship of the dark side of the Force. And a couple times throughout this episode, the witches of the Coven stand before this big chasm at the edge of a cliff, apparently conducting various ceremonies in front of this chasm from time to time. And the first time we see it, a group of witches holding staves appear to host mini chanting ceremonies during the day. And then we of course see Osha and May have their ascension ceremony taking place in front of one of these chasms on the side of this massive mountain as well. And right next to this chasm is a giant triangular standing stone. Now, given what I just went into about the dark side of a planet's force being associated with the literal dark insides of a planet, it appears that this hole on the side of a mountain full of life is a vergence of the dark side of the Force, just like that hole was for Rey on the planet H2 in The Last Jedi. And a big reason why I believe this location is a vergence in the Force is due to this coven making their home on the side of this massive triangular mountain. This mountain, like many green and flourishing mountains throughout the Star Wars cosmos, is rich with the Force, with all those forests and trees and flowers and insects and animals that live on the upper surface of that mountain being associated with the light side of the living Force, while everything that lives and grows inside of the mountain, along with everything that has died and decomposed on that mountain, being associated with that mountain's dark side of the Force. Much like people in the Star Wars universe have a light and dark side of their own living Force, it appears that even natural formations like trees and mountains also have their own light and dark sides. And this hole that these witches are worshipping appears to represent a massive vergence in the dark side of the living Force of this mountain that they live on. And it's a vergence that Mother Anastaea and her cult appear to use in order to perform their ascension ceremony, in conjunction with a wild cosmic force event that occurs in the sky with these blue and red moons that appear to orbit the planet, as these moons also appear to play a significant role during this monumental ceremony for this endangered coven on the run. But a little bit more on that later. The episode opens with Osha sitting by herself underneath a bunta tree, with bunta being referenced in the first 2 episodes of the series as the key ingredient that May would use to poison Jedi Master Torben. While sitting underneath this bunta tree, Osha is playing with a shiny winged rainbow creature, a creature that glows blue and red, much like the colors of the moons of the planet. Much like blue and red are typically associated with the light and dark sides of the Force, the blue and red moons that orbit Brendok seem to symbolically represent the light and dark-sided twins of the series, with Osha being the blue moon and May being the red moon, and with both of those moons also being referenced within the logo of the Acolyte series itself, as the O in the Acolyte is meant to symbolize both of those moons during the alignment. But anyways, as that creature tries to fly away, Osha briefly uses her Force powers to try to keep it from flying away before immediately releasing it, appearing to be very much ashamed of how she used the Force in order to bring harm to an innocent being. May, on the other hand, doesn't have that kind of mindset and is more than happy to aggressively use the dark side of the Force to forcefully keep that creature from flying freely. I love this moment because it perfectly exemplifies both Osha and May's yin-yang type personalities. Because like I mentioned before in my breakdown of the first 2 episodes of the series, both Osha and May are meant to represent the 2 sides of a yin-yang, with Osha representing the light side and May representing the dark side. Osha's brief use of the dark side exemplifies that tiny bit of darkness that resides in the light of a yin-yang, whereas May's prolonged use of excessive force was abated by some bit of compassion for her sister's own compassionate nature. Osha very much feels like the light in May's life, and that's a big reason why May is so possessive over her sister, as symbolized by her unwillingness to let that flying creature go. This is the type of attachment that the Jedi fear the most, an unhealthy level of possessiveness that inevitably leads to immense fear within a person if left unchecked. And it's a similar type of possessiveness that Anakin Skywalker had for both his mother Shmi and his wife Padme. While we as an audience know that loving other people is perfectly okay in moderation, both Anakin Skywalker and May Anastaea both made their other halves the center of their lives and their entire universes. And because of that, they both could not bear the thought of those people that they loved the most not being in their lives anymore. And that possessive fear is what led Anakin to grab a hold of Padme and choke her with the Force, much like May's fearful possessiveness would lead May to attempt to burn Osha alive with fire so that no one else could have her if she couldn't. However, in a vein similar to how Palpatine manipulated Anakin's extremely possessive fear into becoming the wife-abusing Darth Vader, I have a strong feeling that May herself was also manipulated into becoming a member of the Sister Side Squad by a similar type of Phantom Menace, one that used a type of dark power to amplify May's dark-sided fear to control her mind to do bad things. And I believe that this Phantom Menace is none other than May and Osha's mother, Coral, played by actress Margarita Levieva. In fact, like I brought up in my previous breakdown, I have a feeling that Coral is the mysterious dark-sided lightsaber user at the center of this whole series, as such a move would deeply tie into the show's extremely strong themes of duality, exemplified by, symbols like the yin-yang tattoo on both Anastasia and May's heads, as well as the opposing nature of the very titles of the Acolyte episodes themselves. When we first meet Coral when she finds her daughters disobeying the Coven's rules of not venturing too far from their encampment, we quickly discover that she's a deeply fearful mother, one who doesn't want her monumentally powerful Force-wielding miracle children preyed upon by the self-important and hypocritical Jedi cult, who would later show up to chastise the Coven for training children when the Jedi themselves are constantly searching the Force for Force-sensitive children to train in order to increase their own ranks. And it also appears that the Jedi are one of the reasons why this Coven were forced to go into hiding to a location in the galaxy outside the jurisdiction of the Galactic Republic, as the Republic as a whole seems to have great fear of the dark power of these witches, despite apparently not really knowing the true nature of the Coven's doctrine. A doctrine that we would learn later on during May and Osha's lessons is one rooted in a deep respect for the Force and how the Force is centric to connections to nature and one another. Because Coral feared losing her children to the Jedi and what the Jedi's influence could do to her children, she has evolved to become the strict mother in the relationship, while Mother Anastasia herself is the more relaxed and compassionate mother, willing to let her children go if needed. Coral and Anastasia's relationship is also a bit of a yin-yang like their daughters May and Osha's, with Coral being the dark mother and Anastasia the light mother. When Coral and the girls meet back up with Mother Anastasia, Coral gets angry at Mother Anastasia for not having a hard enough hand on the girls and for being too kind and cuddly with them right before they're about to undertake an ascension ceremony that was meant to mark a sign of maturity and growth for the two. With both May and Osha being the only hope for their coven to survive in the galaxy, Coral is deeply invested in making sure that both of these twins are strong enough to survive in a galaxy that hates them after they both agree to become inheritors of the Coven's legacy through the Ascension ceremony, which is why Coral tells the girls that they don't get any spice screams until after the Ascension, and why she influences her partner Anastasia to be a little bit rough on the twins during their training lesson. And Coral gets especially pissed when the Jedi interrupt the Coven's sacred ceremony in order to attempt to take both of their children away for their own ends later on in the episode, even initially encouraging her fellow witches to attack the Jedi while both of Brendok's moons were high in the sky, which implies to me that both the orbiting red and blue moons that aligned during the Ascension ceremony might serve to enhance the Force powers of these witches somehow, focusing the power of those two moons and amplifying the power of the many witches, which would tie into the witches' overall chant, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. One planet, two moons, many witches. And also with this ceremony involving three celestial bodies, Brendok and its two moons, that right there could also have served to explain why there's so much freaking triangle imagery throughout this entire coven. There are triangles everywhere, on their technology, on their walls, and even Mother Anastasia's hair got some double triangles on it. So I feel like these triangles could either symbolize the mountain that they live on, this triple celestial body formation, or just end up being some type of foreshadowing to the eventual revelation that Osha, May, and Coral are the only three surviving members of the Coven left. I don't know. But anyways, later on in the episode, when May starts fighting with Osha, when Osha confesses her desire to join the Jedi, notice how it is Coral herself who takes May away from Mother Anastasia and Osha right before May's personality and attitude towards her sister completely changes, leading May to start that fire in their bedroom. Look, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I strongly believe that it was Mother Coral herself who used some type of witch mind control on May in order to keep Osha from joining the Jedi Order. And I think that this was teased in episode 1 when Osha had that vision of a young May's eyes turning black in the same way that a young Padawan Torben had his eyes turn black when Mother Anastasia took control of his mind briefly. It seems like some sort of dark-sided mind control is afoot here, as both Osha and May seem to have conflicting stories as to what caused the overall fire that killed the witches of Brendok. Osha thinks May did it, while May seems to think that the Jedi were responsible. But it appears to me that it was likely Coral who stoked May's inner fears of losing Osha in order for Coral to manipulate May's dark side to facilitate mind control over her, and then ordering May to start the bedroom fire in order to cover up the more damaging fire that Coral most likely started by blowing up that mysterious power generator that the Coven were presumably using to power their settlement and technology and whatnot. And why would Coral do this? Well, remember when Mother Anastasia told Osha that she was going to have a meeting with the rest of the Coven, informing them of Osha's decision to leave their Coven forever? Well, something tells me that that meeting didn't exactly go in Coral's favor, with the witches very likely agreeing with Mother Anastasia's decision to let Osha find her own path in the Force, and Coral not taking the results of that witchy referendum particularly well. And I also have a feeling that when Coral took May away to another room when she was freaking out, May might have confessed to Coral that she was going to go with Osha to become a Jedi as well. May's attachment to Osha seems strong enough for May to want to follow Osha to Coruscant, like May follows Osha everywhere, even though May absolutely hated the thought of not being part of the Coven as their most revered witch. It's literally them two or nothing to May. So I straight up think that all of these factors cause Coral to absolutely lose her shit, because Coral did not bring two twins into this world through mysterious, dark, and unnatural means, only for one of those two twins to become the very thing that she hates the most, a smelly Jedi. So I believe Coral's fear led her to killing her own Coven and then igniting the reactor that we saw her looking at the end of Osha and May's lesson, in order to manipulate May into thinking that the Jedi were responsible for the deaths of everyone that she held dear, because May was the only one of the two twins to actually undergo the Ascension ceremony and commit to keeping the legacy of the Coven alive. So May was pretty much the only twin that Coral had to manipulate, because she was Coral's hope for the future. But again, that's just a theory. But speaking of Coral's unnatural birth of the twins, we learn in this episode that Mother Anastasia used the dark side of the Force to impregnate her partner, Mother Coral. No testicles required or your money back. This is majorly significant here because the unnatural birth of May and Osha is incredibly similar to that of Anakin Skywalker's, as he too was born through the Force without a father, with Anakin's birth strongly being implied to have been the result of Darth Sidious using what he learned from his master Darth Plagueis on how to manipulate the microscopic midichlorians to create life. We actually do see a pretty interesting visual of Palpatine using the Force on Shmi Skywalker's womb in the pages of Darth Vader number 25 from 2018, when Darth Vader would utilize a Virgins in the Force on Mustafar to enter the dark side of the cosmic force to gain hidden cosmic knowledge. This revelation of May and Osha's births having been the result of unnatural Force usage seems to imply to me that the narrative of this season will likely reveal the Sith learning how such an unnatural dark-sided technique was possible, likely, in my opinion, from Mother Coral herself. And like I mentioned briefly in my last breakdown, I definitely feel like Darth Plagueis is somewhere in this show, possibly even being the mysterious Chimere. And much like I said last week, I am aware that Chimere is not of the moon species, like Darth Plagueis is in the original Legends material. But since this is no longer the Legends continuity, Darth Plagueis could literally be any race. But yeah, it seems like a really strong possibility that we're going to learn how Palpatine's knowledge of how to create powerful Force beings like Anakin came from this powerful Coven. But anyways, when the witches are discussing what to do after the Jedi's arrival, Coral asks Anastasia to consider what would happen to the cult if a group of dark side hating bitches like the Jedi learned that May and Osha were the result of an unnatural birth, implying that the Jedi would likely wipe them all out of fear of how powerful they could grow throughout the galaxy. Something that very well could have been what the Jedi intended to do with their secret mission on Brendok. Because what the hell was Saul even doing inside of the witch's compound when it was collapsing? The Jedi were up to some sketchy shit, man, but exactly what that shit was has yet to be revealed. But it seems to me that they were looking for any reason whatsoever to annihilate the remainder of this Coven from existence. And this twin special birth could also serve to explain why they feel such a strong connection with each other. At one point during the episode, Mother Anastasia tells the twins that the Force had tied them together before they were born, which could imply that Mother Anastasia originally intended on creating a singular ultra-powerful witch, but was surprised when the Force decided to split the Force power that Anastasia concentrated into Coral between two living beings instead of just one. So, purely on a Force type level, Mei and Osha could be two halves of one powerful whole. A whole cut in half biologically. Mei might actually feel that Force connection more strongly than Osha because Mei actually embraces using the Force. But Osha seems to have great fear of the Force and would prefer not to use it, as we see during their training session when Osha rushes behind her sister Mei when told to defend against their mother's attack. Osha seems to have a substantial affinity for life and nature in general, and appears to be afraid of using the Force to hurt other people, an anxiety likely tied to adult Osha's struggle to use the Force while on that prison transport ship that was crashing in episode 1. I also feel like Osha's attraction towards all life itself is one of the primary reasons why Osha felt so compelled to leave her isolation on Brendok the first chance she got. Like, I don't think Osha really cared about becoming a Jedi at all, because I think she saw the Jedi as her only ticket out of her having to take a lifetime oath to hide in silence as a cornerstone of the next generation of witches. Which is why Osha would secretly draw the Jedi symbol in her triangle-ass notebook, because triangles are everywhere in this damn coven. I mean, just look at Osha's face as she approaches the front of the ceremony. That little girl is terrified and just wants to have a normal life with friends to explore all the life in the galaxy with. And I feel like this affinity towards looking for life is why Osha ends up getting the tattoo that she shows off to Saul in episode 2, as that tattoo seems purposely shaped after her old bedroom window on Brendok that she used to look out of when she dreamed about being part of the galaxy, with that symmetrical tattoo also matching the show's duality theme as well. When a young Osha is brought before the Jedi for evaluation, we also see her curiosity towards life lead her to become immediately attracted towards the strange, furry Wookiee Jedi Kelnaka, a Jedi that we saw at the very end of episode 2, with one of the witches in the background ready to immediately kill Kelnaka if his hairy ass tried anything funny. And after this, a young Padawan Torben would take Osha's blood sample, likely to test Osha's midichlorian count to see how strong she is in the Force, much like Qui-Gon Jinn did with Anakin Skywalker, only for Saul and Indara to see how naturally strong Osha is when she purposely acts like she doesn't sense the Loth cat on a screen facing away from her. And if I had to guess, it was likely this blood test that caused the Jedi to feel like they needed to sneak into the witches' encampment before that start of the fire that night, possibly to discover how those witches created such a powerful being and to eliminate those witches before they created any more. And another thing I noticed regarding Osha are her 3 blue alien fox-like stuffed animals that she touches while packing her things to leave with the Jedi, with those 3 creatures representing the 3 family members that Osha was about to leave behind. You know, before Mei comes in and tries to flambe her twin. But after Osha would escape her fiery demise, she hears her coven screaming overhead before meeting up with Mei again for the last time in 16 years on this long broken bridge over a big ass abyss, one of the most classic Star Wars locations, as seen in The Empire Strikes Back and The Force Awakens. But this broken bridge of course symbolizes the rift between Mei and Osha after Mei went cuckoo for Osha puffs. But after Mei takes a tumble, Osha escapes yet another roasting, courtesy of Saul, who saves her from falling just like he did at the end of episode 1 16 years later. A theme that symbolizes Saul's relentless resolve to keeping Osha from falling to her dark-sided vengeance, even making the impossible promise at the end of the episode that Osha would never feel as sad as she felt that night again. But as Saul leads Osha to safety, Osha sees all of her coven dead on the ground, including her mother Anastasia. But I don't know about you, but you know who I don't see amongst all these dead witches? Everyone's favorite angry-ass Zabrak mama, Coral, which is mighty suspicious, don't you think? And I think it'll be revealed in a future episode that it was Coral who saved Mei with the power of the Force from below before leaving Mei to fend for herself. Then the episode of course ends with Mei looking for her sister at the Bunta tree after inexplicably surviving her fall. But when she sees that Osha isn't there like she usually is, Mei seems to take that as an indication that her sister did not survive at all, which was a loss that would send Mei tumbling far into the dark side with no one to help her. No one but her new, mysterious, and extremely convenient dark-sided master. A master who I believe is actually a mama. Mama Coral. But anyways, that is it for this analysis of episode 3 of The Acolyte. What was your favorite part of the episode, and what are you guys looking forward to in the future? And again, who do you guys think is this mysterious masked person? I mean, I think it's Coral, but it could literally be anybody. Who do you guys think? Let us know below. But anyways, you can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube. And when you do, hit that notification bell so you can get notifications every time we upload a video. Also, huge shout outs to our editors. Like, I love them so much, and they do so much for you guys to make these videos as presentable as possible. But if you guys could do me a favor and leave a quick thank you for our editors down below to let them know that you appreciate them, because I appreciate them very much, and I know Paul does too. But anyways, I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.